Part 38. Super Zoo. Author, Yin Seg Nian Bai. Chapter 371. The public channel of the radio is not encrypted. As long as you are within the radiation range of the radio, you can hear the conversation on the public channel. Sand mining ships operate on the river, and 80% of them will be equipped with radio equipment for convenience of communication and safety. In other words, it is entirely possible that the conversation the fisherman had on the radio just now fell into the ears of the people on the sand mining boat. "You're careless, Lao Gu kept slapping his thigh, feeling extremely depressed. Nangong Huang was young and had little knowledge of the dangers of society. He said in confusion, "You just heard it. If you heard it, so what?" "Lao Gu, drive the boat over and take a look," Su Ming said calmly. Before Lao Gu's fishing boat was halfway through, he heard a dispute coming from the radio. There was a vaguely unfamiliar young voice saying angrily, "Don't be shameless. Our boss took the sorry, and the money was gone. A lot of points for you." In the entire public channel, except for this arrogant voice, the remaining fishermen all remained silent, and no one dared to speak. Then there was a commotion and the radio communication on the opposite ship was cut off. "Oops," Lao Gu sighed while driving the boat, "it's rare to catch swordfish, and I'm so happy that I forgot about it. Let those people hear, what good things can I keep, live?" "Uncle Gu, what are they doing?" Nangong Huang asked confused. "The owner of the sand mining boat not only mines sand, but also has business in the fish market." Lao Gu looked at Su Ming, shook his head and smiled bitterly. "Mr. Su, I'm afraid those swordfish can't be saved." "You mean they want to cut off their beards?" Nangong Huang was born as a little ruffian after all, and had a bad temper. "Why? There's always a first come first served basis for everything. Can they still rob it openly? If the one with the highest price gets it, I will. Don't you believe it, they are richer than my brother-in-law." Nangong Huang had blind confidence in Su Ming's financial resources after buying tens of thousands of yuan worth of clothes for this boy last time. "It's not like robbery, but the money given is definitely lower than the market price," Lao Gu said. "They are all local snakes. The villagers still have to make a living on the river. If they ask for it, how can they dare to offend them? Okay, let's not talk about this. Let's sail over and have a look." Su Ming waved his hand. Zhao Yun hugged his arms and stood on the bow of the boat, shaking his head regretfully. Nangong Huang was furious. "Uncle Zhao, you are all respectable figures in society. When you are bullied, you can only smile bitterly. Why don't you fight back? Let me tell you, just go ahead and do it boldly. If anything happens, my whole family will be covered by the police." This kid has recently become enlightened. Under Su Ming's words and deeds, he finally knows how to use the power of his family like a normal second generation. The police in Yangchuan City have no control over Huiying County. Zhao Yun shook his head and raised his chin at Su Ming, who was standing at the bow of the boat. "Why do you think I am smiling bitterly? You still don't understand your brother-in-law. Even if there is no wind, he will make 3-foot waves. If someone really messes with him, do you think he will just let it go? Uncle Zhao, don't teach this kid bad, I'm a serious person." Su Ming turned around and glanced at him. When they met with Lao Liao's fishing boat, a small boat from the other party's sand mining boat had already sailed away. Lao Gu built a springboard several meters long, and Su Ming swayed onto Lao Liao's fishing boat. Lao Liao is about the same age as Lao Gu, in his 40s, a lean man with dark skin, squatting on the deck and smoking. The deck was in a mess, pots and pans were knocked over, and a large fishing net was torn apart and thrown aside. Seeing Su Ming get on the boat, Lao Liao raised his head and showed a helpless smile. On a dark and wrinkled face, there was a very clear mark of a slap. "Old Liao, are they taking action?" Su Ming frowned and asked in a deep voice. "It's one thing to jump in line and sell fish without following the rules, but it's another thing to hit someone. The two are completely different in nature." Even when Zhou Jin bullied and dominated the market, in most cases, he would not attack people in the fish market. After all, the market and the Yangtze River fishery are all supported by these people at the bottom. Hey, don't mention it. I said that the fish has been reserved. After a few arguments with them, those young men took action. I'm really sorry, Mr. Su. I didn't help you keep these sorry fish. My whole family still wants it. I'm trying to make a living on the river, and I really don't dare to have a quarrel with them. Lao Liao was still very kind, even though he was beaten. He kept apologizing to Su Ming for not keeping his promise. It's okay. Of course Su Ming couldn't blame Lao Liao, so he asked, how much did they pay? Lao Liao said angrily, it costs 1,000 yuan per catty. I was originally offered to give 5,000 yuan, but those young men didn't bring enough money, so they gave me 2,000 yuan, and I still owe 3,000 yuan. Lao Liao, you are confused. For such a big swordfish, Mr. Su gave me 3,000, and they gave me 1,000. That's not robbery, Lao Gu followed up from the springboard. Hearing what Lao Liao said, he couldn't help but interrupt. Then what can I do? It's not like you don't know these people. If I don't give them fish today, they will bring people to smash my fishing boat in the evening, Lao Liao said angrily. Lao Gu, don't talk about him either. It's not easy. Su Ming stood at the bow of the boat, holding a pergola with one hand and looking in the other direction. Just now, two speedboats came out of the sand mining boat. One was heading for Lao Liao, and the other was heading to catch the white sturgeon. The direction of Old Shen's fishing boat went. From a distance, I could see that a speedboat had left the direction of Lao Shen's fishing boat and headed quickly towards the sand mining ship. Old Shen, Su Ming turned on the radio and asked, what's the situation over there? Mr. Su, I'm Old Shen said angrily on the other end of the radio. They also took away 2 sturgeons and didn't give me a cent. They said I illegally caught nationally protected animals and wanted to. For the sake of being an acquaintance, you have to report me to the Marine Police. Mr. Su, I just followed your instructions and left those 2 sturgeons on the boat. If they really report it, you have to do it for me. Prove. Su Ming almost laughed in anger. These people really dared to say that the thief shouted catch the thief, robbed someone else's fish, and also accused them of breaking the law. In broad daylight, the world is clear. Is there any royal law left? I can't be bothered to dig holes all over the river in this broken boat. Now I'm even trying to rob the fisherman's harvest, and you're taking it all from me. Su Ming had been in Huiying County for the past 2 days and visited several houses. He really felt that the lives of fishermen were indeed not easy. All year round, they relied on the harvest of the past few months to support their families. If the harvest was good, it would be like an old man. Gu, like this, can only earn 50,000 to 60,000 yuan a year to support a large family. More often than not, there are fishermen like Lao Liao who don't even have a house and can only live on a fishing boat. They haven't had any good luck in 9 out of 10 years. They managed to catch a few kilograms of sari, which cost them more than 10,000 yuan. Farmers and fishermen earn hard money, especially fishermen who work on the water. They are simply risking their lives. Those people rob even fishermen, and their conscience is very bad. Lao Gu, what's the name of the owner of that sand mining ship? Su Ming asked calmly. Su Meng followed Su Ming for a relatively long time, and they often used mental power to communicate with each other. They could barely be considered to have a tacit understanding. Su Ming frowned slightly, and Su Meng felt the change in Su Ming's mood, and faced him fiercely. Feng waved his fist and let out a low roar of hee-hee in his throat. Don't mess around, Zhao Yun quickly grabbed Su Ming. I know you have the ability to deal with them, but again, if you slap your butt and leave afterward, they will definitely take revenge on these fishermen. Unlucky people. They are still fishermen. These people are cruel and have no regard for the law. That's great. I have the obligation to help them popularize the law. Su Ming sneered. Don't worry, I know it well, and the fishermen will not be involved. After asking about the background of the owner of the sand mining ship, Su Ming called Baldhead and said, I want to ask you personally, do you know that there is a man named Wu Dachan in Beihe Town across from Huayin County? The Baldhead originally followed Zhou Jin and was also a tycoon in Yangchuan City. He was quite famous in the society. Beihe Town was only across a river from Yangchuan City. They were all mixed in the society. The Baldhead should have a crush on Wu Dachan. Understood. After the Zhou Jin incident last time, the Baldhead abandoned the dark side and became a department manager of the fishery company. Following Su Ming, strictly speaking, Liang Shihun, he was responsible for dealing with large and small vendors in the fish market in Yangchuan City. Daowen Fishery is now the largest and best quality freshwater fish supplier in Yangchuan City. Baldhead's life is very smooth every day. He doesn't need to bully the market like before. He just needs to wait for the fishmongers to come to ask for supplies. With him, with this old gangster in charge, the fishmongers in the fish market did not dare to default on their fish payments. Therefore, the entire Yangchuan City fish market operated in an orderly manner and entered a virtuous cycle. The management department of the fish market even specially commended it last time. Bald. The only thing that makes the Baldhead a little depressed is that he can't be Su Ming's direct subordinate. Of course he has to follow a good boss when he goes out to hang out. Liang Shi is pretty good, but he is too scholarly and has nothing in common with the Baldhead. As soon as he received the call from Su Ming, the Baldhead immediately became excited. Wu Dachan, I know. This man is a prostitute who eats, drinks, whores, gambles and smokes all kinds of poisons. He is very famous in Beihe Town. He is nicknamed the Fifth Minister. He has dealt with him several times before. What's wrong, Brother Su, has he offended you? You old man, Brother Su, I will bring someone over and chop that old beast to death. What are you calling me brother? You're talking nonsense. Su Ming had a stick in one hand and a carrot in the other for gangsters like Bald. He would never be stingy when it was time to reward him, and he would not be polite when it was time to criticize him, lest they raise their tails to the sky. Causing trouble. Okay, I understand, I'll talk to him. Business at the fish market has been good recently, so you should worry about it, Su Ming said. Isn't that what you should do? Brother Su, you can come and inspect me anytime, the Baldhead said happily. Go when you have time. Super Zoo. Author, Yin Seg Nian Bai. Chapter 372. It's not scary to be uneducated, but what's scary is that you still have to pretend to be uneducated. In a small town, you are obviously not doing good things, and you are still proud of being called the Five Ministers. Do you really think that you are the pillar of the country and the world? Should I choose another emperor? Riding Lao Gu's fishing boat, they slowly approached the sand mining boat. Several dozen meters away, the people on the sand mining boat had already seen Su Ming. 7 or 8 shirtless guys who looked like gangsters were standing on the mining boat. On the deck of the sand ship, looking this way. Lao Gu contacted the other party by radio and said that a boss from Yangchuan City wanted to talk to Wu Dachan. Soon a small boat came over and took Su Ming to the sand mining ship. The sand mining ship roared loudly. Tons of sand and gravel were sucked out from the bottom of the river, broken into pieces, and transported to the ship along the tracks. It was almost impossible to hear the voices. Su Ming asked Su Meng and Nangong Huang to wait on the deck. He followed a man who looked like a younger brother to a cabin below. As soon as he entered, the boy closed the cabin door with his backhand, barely blocking out the noise. The cabin was not big, only a dozen square meters, but there were 5 or 6 people crowded inside. Sitting in the middle was a middle-aged man with a short hair, who was shirtless like several young people around him, and had a somewhat baggy chest. There was a crooked dragon tattooed on his skin. He squatted on the chair with one foot, hugged his knee, and looked at Su Ming with unruly eyes. Even though it was the first time they met, the look in his eyes naturally revealed a very low-level ferocity, and he looked like an old bastard at first glance. "I'm Wu Daqin, what do you want from me?" Seeing that Su Ming was young, the middle-aged man asked with a bit of contempt and a sarcastic smile. In the cabin, several Wu Daqin's younger brothers also stared at Su Ming with unkind eyes and a strange smile on their lips. Su Ming was annoyed by old bastards like this the most. If you want to say that he is doing well, it is far from being said that he is still in the primitive accumulation stage of relying on a few younger brothers to bully and dominate the market. He is not even as good as the original Zhou Jin. At any rate, Zhou Jin has begun to develop towards industrialization. He even has the intention to enter the political world. To say that he is not doing well, he is much better than ordinary hooligans, he can make millions a year, and he has various connections in the small town, and he is like a local tyrant. The more this kind of person is, the more ignorant he is of the sky and the earth. He thinks that the world is the boss and the earth is the second, and I am the third. He is so crazy that he likes to bully others to show his sense of existence. Su Ming had just entered the door, and before Hao Duan said a word, Wu Daqin put on this posture, looking very proud, and stared at Su Ming sideways. If Su Ming was a serious businessman and saw this attitude, he would not have done business with such a person. Before Su Ming could speak, Wu Daqin said again, "I heard them say on the radio just now that there is some bullshit boss Su, is it you? Damn it, I thought it was some big boss who came and did it for a long time. A little kid went to the Yangtze River to spend tens of thousands of dollars and pretended to be a boss." There was a burst of laughter in the cabin, and several gangsters laughed. Su Ming didn't understand at all. What was the humor in Wu Daqin's words? Maybe in the eyes of these people, everything they insult others is funny. The greatest pleasure of bullying is that the person being bullied has to react. The final pleasure is to see the person being bullied angry, sad, and helpless. A group of gangsters in the cabin laughed for a long time, but Su Ming never showed up. Instead of reacting at all, they looked at them like idiots. Several gangsters smiled but couldn't quite smile. Feeling that they couldn't save their face, they changed their ridicule into threats and glared at Su Ming fiercely. Su Ming dragged a chair and sat down, crossed his legs, and said calmly, "Boss Wu, since you heard this, you should know that I ordered the sari. If you offer a higher price than me, I have nothing to say. If you give someone 1,000 yuan per catty and you still don't pay the full price, is that considered half a robbery?" Of course I know. Wu Daqin nodded and asked in a bachelor's manner, "I just robbed your fish. What do you want? What can you do?" The boys around seemed to have heard some funny joke, and they laughed strangely again. "I said, you people, have you eaten too much magpie shit? You can still laugh for a long time when he farts." Su Ming simply mocked him, and turned to ask Wu Daqin, "This is the first time I've heard that you can buy a fish and get a mortgage in installments. How poor do you have to be? 5,000 yuan and you have to pay it in 2 installments, you have no money, you don't have the money to go home and take care of your children, why are you pretending to be a gangster? Don't you have a good reputation in Beihai town? How about you go to the bank and get a loan of 2,000 yuan? Your mother." Wu Daqin was furious. He stood up and kicked Su Ming without hesitation. Although Wu Daqin is not young, his kicks are very powerful. Judging from his posture, it seems that he has practiced sanda. Su Ming was always smiling, as if he couldn't even beat Nangong Yan, but that was because he gave in to Nangong Yan. After a year of mental strength nourishment, in terms of physical fitness, professional athletes may not be able to catch up with Su Ming. In his free time, he also learns grappling and fighting from the retired Special Forces soldier Dong Dong from the security department. When it comes to fighting, among the people he knows, only Su Ming can stabilize his head. He didn't hide at all, he raised his kick and kicked Wu Daqin, the last one came first. Before Wu Dachan could kick Su Ming had already kicked him hard in the stomach, knocking him 100 times. The heavy body was kicked back more than half a meter and hit the chair he was sitting on hard. With a click, the chair fell apart and the person fell to the ground. "Damn it, let me break his hands and feet," Wu Dachan shouted with red eyes. Several men came up to Su Ming with wrenches and steel pipes. A pure steel wrench weighing more than 10 pounds would break a bone if it hit him. There were 5 of Wu Dachan's men in the cabin, all of them were strong men in their prime. The iron door of the cabin was locked from the inside, and Su Ming had nowhere to run. Boom, the closed cabin door suddenly made a dull noise. I saw a fist mark concave inward on the big iron door, as if there was an iron fist outside, hitting the door hard. "What are you standing there for? Hit me," Wu Dachan's vision was blocked. He only heard the door banging, but didn't see the fist mark. He covered his stomach and howled on the ground. "Hit your mother," Su Ming went up and kicked Wu Dachan in the mouth again. Wu Dachan fell on his back, and several bloody teeth flew around. At the same time, the loud noises of the cabin iron door continued, one after another, and with each noise, a terrifying fist mark would appear on the big iron door. After a few times, the iron door finally couldn't bear the weight, making a harsh sound of metal cracking. The big iron door was pushed from the outside and fell inside with a bang. A huge figure blocked the cabin door, like a huge shadow, blocking the sunlight coming in from the outside, and pulling a long black shadow in the cabin. The big guy Su Ming appeared at the door, his eyes swept across the room, like a beast seeing its prey, cold and emotionless. When they made eye contact with Su Ming, several gangsters couldn't help but shudder. A guy closest to the door roared and subconsciously raised a steel pipe and threw it at Su Ming. Su Ming didn't even look at it, and grabbed the steel pipe with his hand. Without much force, he snatched the steel pipe from the man's hand. If it were in the past, this guy would probably be dead. When I first saw Su Ming, he was shot several times, and he easily stabbed a poacher into the soil alive. A poacher fell on the stone wall and was smashed into a pulp. His fighting ability was almost beyond the scope of humans. Fortunately, after following Su Ming for so long, Su Ming also understood that he could not kill or injure people casually. After taking the steel pipe, he slapped the gangster and turned several times on the spot. Half of his face was swollen like a pig's head. Then, in front of everyone, he held the 2 ends of the steel pipe with both hands, and his arm muscles bulged suddenly. Squeak, in a sound that made people sore, the straight steel pipe was bent into a U shape. It was not until this time that Nangong Huang showed his head from behind Su Ming. Seeing the tense situation in front of him, the boy was immediately excited and shouted, "Brother-in-law, kill them all." Su Ming. Looking from the gap behind Su Ming, the few gangsters who stayed on the deck outside had fallen to the ground. A true warrior dares to face the bleak life and the blood, and is proud to challenge those who are stronger than themselves. However, the gangsters in the cabin are obviously not such people. They are used to showing their martial arts in front of the weak. When they encounter Su Ming, a powerful force beyond their imagination, these gangsters collapse faster than normal people. Without Su Ming's words, they quickly threw away their weapons and stood in a row against the cabin. Only Wu Dachan still had a bit of the ruthlessness of an old gangster. He climbed up and touched the blood on his mouth, gritting his teeth and said, "Boy, if you dare, kill me. Do you think I'm sick? I don't want to go to jail if I kill you." Su Ming patted the dust on his hands, took out his wallet, counted a stack of money and put it on the table, and said, "Put 2,000 yuan here, return the fish to me, and let it go." Although Wu Dachan was tough, he still knew the importance of the matter. If he continued to resist at this time, he would not get any good results. A gentleman's revenge is never too late. He asked a few of his younger brothers to carry a water tank in, and a dozen long Yangtze River knife fish swam around in the water tank. What about the sturgeon? I tell you, sturgeon is a national first-class protected animal. Su Ming deliberately emphasized the pronunciation of the words national first-class protected animal, and as if he was afraid that Wu Daqin didn't understand, he added, fishermen who catch white sturgeons should either hand them over to the relevant departments or release them. Privately selling and breeding them is illegal. As expected, Wu Daqin's eyes moved quickly, revealing a cunning look, and snorted, "Sturgeon, of course I know it is a protected animal, so I released it." "Did you really release it?" Su Ming frowned, clearly not believing it. "Yes." Wu Daqin looked at Su Ming with his head held high, as if he knew that I was lying. "What could you do to me?" "Boss Wu, I advise you not to make a mistake. Finally, I emphasize to you that it is illegal to privately keep white sturgeons," Su Ming said. "If you don't believe me, you can report it. You can ask the police to come to my boat to check." Wu Daqin showed his true colors as an old gangster. "Or you can kill me now. I think you have guts." "Okay, okay. Boss Wu, you have guts? You can do it?" Su Ming looked like he had suffered a great injustice, his face flushed red, and let Su Ming carry the water tank and take Nangong Huang out of the cabin. "Brother-in-law, he clearly lied to you. He went to rob the fish, how could he let it go?" Nangong Huang said behind him. "Don't talk." Su Ming's face was tense, and he finally held back his laughter. What he wanted was Wu Daqin to say so. If he handed over the sturgeon honestly, Su Ming would not do it. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Super Zoo. Author, Yin Seg Nian Bai. Chapter 373. "Brother-in-law, are you out of your mind?" Nangong Huang asked in surprise. That Wu Daqin was obviously talking nonsense. No one would believe that he put the sturgeon back into the river. If he really had such a sense of social responsibility, he would still violate the law. Sand mining? Will these fishermen be bullied? Su Ming smiled and said nothing. Of course he didn't believe it. The last sentence about releasing life was something he said on purpose. He was afraid that Wu Daqin would not think of it and deliberately went to give Wu Daqin a warning. What is a white sturgeon? That is not Su Ming's private property. Chao Xiaoli said that it is a nationally protected animal or an endangered species. Chao Gaozhang said that it is a precious natural resource shared by the people of the country and the world. Su Ming does not need to ask for it. Naturally, someone went to argue with Wu Dao. Lao Chu is not a good-tempered person. Recently, his beloved Beiji dolphin died, and he is in a bad mood. After leaving the sand dredging boat, Su Ming went directly to the shore and did not stay on Lao Gu and his team's boat, lest Wu Daqin would bear a grudge against Lao Gu and his team. Instead, he and Zhao Yun squatted by the river, each fishing with a fishing rod. The overlord turtle lurked at the bottom of the river, crawling around in the water, as if looking for something. Hai Dongqing found a forest by the river to rest, and occasionally flew into the sky to patrol for a while. Su Ming didn't want to be caught by Wu Daqin. The younger brother came over and attacked him secretly. At around 3 o'clock in the afternoon, Su Ming suddenly seemed stunned and laughed 3 times. The overlord turtle found a good treasure under the water. "Why are you laughing so weirdly?" Zhao Yun held the fishing rod and was laughed at by Su Ming. "Nothing." Su Ming pointed to the Yangtze River in front of him and said, "Uncle Zhao, there must have been a war in this place." Of course, the Yangtze River is an important shipping area. It controls both the upstream and downstream sides. It has been raging with war since ancient times. "Why do you ask this?" Zhao Yun said. "I'm not doing anything, I'm just asking. The Yangtze River is really a good place." Su Ming felt so happy that his hand holding the fishing rod was shaking. There was going to be a good show ahead. After more than half an hour, the people from the Academy of Agricultural Sciences finally arrived. there was a fishery administration boat, Lao Chu, Lao Song, Liang Shi, and several fishery administration staff. Old Chu, who was so old, jumped off the boat from a long way away. Where are the fish? What kind of fish? Su Ming asked knowingly. What other fish could there be? A paddlefish, Lao Chu said. Oh, he was released, Su Ming said nonchalantly. Lao Song and Lao Chu, who came over, were both stunned. Didn't they agree to protect him first and wait until they come to deal with it? Everything was fine, so why did he let it go again? Isn't this nonsense? What's the point of releasing two fish? Without a group, they will end up extinct in the end, Lao Chu said sadly. What's going on? Seeing Su Ming's weird smile, Old Song guessed what kind of article there was and asked in a deep voice. The thing is like this. After Su Ming roughly explained what happened, Professor Chu and Director Song were both stunned. It was obvious that they had the same idea as Nangong Huang, and they did not believe that Wu Do would specially snatch the sturgeon from the fisherman's hands and then release it. It is rare for wild white sturgeons to grow to about 1 meter. If sold privately, two can be sold for hundreds of thousands. If you find a foreign buyer, the price can be even higher. For Wu Dachun, it is only a dime. The cost is not spent, this is money falling from the sky. It is strange that he is willing to let it go. Let's go. Get on the boat and negotiate with him. We boarded the fishery boat and drove towards the other side of the Yangtze River. As soon as we approached the huge sand mining ship moored in the shallow water on the other side, the huge roar of sand mining came over, and Professor Chu's eyebrows suddenly wrinkled. Turned around and asked several fishery officers on the fishery administration boat, what a nonsense! What a nonsense! Who allowed them to mine sand here? Several employees of the fishery administration were also aggrieved and could not afford to offend Lao Chu. Professor Chu, this section of the river is not under my control. Besides, the management of sand mining vessels requires joint law enforcement, which cannot be done by our department alone. Power management. Old Chu, take care of things one by one. First go and ask him where the paddlefish is, Director Song reminded in a deep voice. Yes, Professor Chu signaled the fishery boat to approach, and soon, Su Ming and the others boarded the sand mining boat again. Seeing that he was accompanied by fishery officials and Professor Chu revealed his identity again, Wu Dachun's attitude changed 180 degrees this time. He was polite and answered all questions. He was not at all arrogant like the gangster leader just now. It seemed that he is a completely honest sand miner who doesn't know anything. His acting skills are top-notch and astonishing. A polite attitude does not mean that he is truly honest. Wu Dachun, an old man, took another approach, pretending to be stupid. Regarding the whereabouts of the sturgeon, it was killed in one bite and released. Comrades who don't believe in fishery policy can search my boat. They searched as they were told. The few people who came with Lao Chu actually searched the sand mining boat. Most of the cabin was filled with sand and gravel. It was obvious on the deck that there was no place to hide two sturgeons of that size. Lao Chu had no choice but to return to the fishery boat. As soon as he came back, Lao Chu jumped up and down in anger. Call the police, I don't believe it yet, I can't control these people. I asked, and the situation in this area is a bit special. It belongs to a no-nonsense zone, so they took advantage of it, Su Ming said. Lao Chu was angry just now. In fact, he also knew that what Su Ming said was probably true. The difficulty of managing the Yangtze River was not a matter of a day or two. Even those areas with clear division of responsibilities did not dare to say that it was 100%. Put an end to it. On the one hand, the management department has few manpower and heavy tasks. Moreover, since they dare to mine sand illegally, they must have ways to deal with inspections. These people are slippery than loaches. In fact, in most cases, a single department does not have the power to handle it, and several departments must jointly enforce the law. In particular, The Academy of Agricultural Sciences where Lao Chu is located is a scientific research unit, and it has no law enforcement power, nor can it mobilize the local police. At best, it can only provide opinions to law enforcement units and appeal to society. With a glimmer of hope, Liangshi still called the Marine Police and 110 units. He also specifically stated that they were from the Provincial Academy of Agricultural Sciences and had discovered illegal hunting and sand mining, and asked them to call the police. Let's work on both sides. I'll take the video as evidence, and I'll upload it when I get back. After the phone call, Liangshi took a DV and went all the way to take photos of the evidence of illegal sand mining by sand mining ships. From the DV it can be seen that the people on the boat in the distance are confident, standing on the deck, pointing at this person, not paying attention to the fishery policy. It's useless. Su Ming shook his head. Countless bad news breaks out on the internet every day. Even if you put the video online, it may not have much effect. As long as it is delayed for a few days, the public's attention will be attracted by other more incredible news. Walk. Merely illegal sand mining and the capture of protected animals without evidence are not enough to attract much attention from public opinion and take it seriously. Old Chu was sighing beside him, but Director Song pulled Su Ming aside. He knew Su Ming well. He had never suffered a loss since he met him. The situation in front of him seemed unsolvable, but Su Ming remained silent. Lao Song held on to a glimmer of hope and asked, "If you have any idea, just tell me, don't sell it." "Old director, I'm not trying to show off. There are some things that cannot be said openly, let alone Lao Chu and the others." "It's as long as I know it well enough," Su Ming said. "I understand." Lao Song lowered his voice, "Please tell me what you think." "I think so. The other party must have dared to be so tough. They must have been prepared to hide the sturgeons. Even if the management department came on board to inspect them, they would not let go. They killed them and released them. There is nothing you can do to take them. And the 2 white sturgeons will definitely not be recovered. As for someone like him who illegally mines sand, there is too much in the Yangtze River. If he is fined today, he will work harder to collect more sand to make up for the loss tomorrow." "Then what are you going to do?" Principal Song asked. Su Ming chuckled and whispered, "A few days ago, I rescued a 3-legged king turtle, and now this big old turtle is lying on the bottom of the river." "3-legged overlord turtle? That's also a rare species. Are you going to let the overlord turtle collide with their ship?" Old Song was already accustomed to Su Ming's ability to train animals, so he didn't think much about it. If someone had just met Su Ming and heard that he could train turtles to be obedient underwater, they would be surprised or even unbelievable. However, Lao Song had seen too many examples of Su Ming's training of animals in the past year. The ability to accept has also been gradually expanded. Moreover, at the age of Lao Song, half buried in the ground, he has already understood that there is no need to get to the bottom of some things. Su Ming is capable, and it is a good thing for him and the zoo, and that is enough. This is also the reason why Su Ming can say some things to Lao Song, but not to Lao Chu or even to Liangshi. The sand mining ship in the distance is huge and has a thick layer of iron armor. How could a king turtle pose a threat to it? Tyrannosaurus rex is pretty much the same. Of course that's impossible. Su Ming still had a smile on his face, but his tone was a bit sinister. He grinned, showing a mouthful of white teeth. "Ba Wong turtle, I found a good treasure in the water. I think it can come in handy." After saying that, he whispered a word into Lao Song's ear. When Lao Song heard this, his face turned pale. He quickly turned around to see if there was no one around him, and nervously said to Su Ming, "Don't kill anyone. These people are not worthy of death." "Don't worry, I've seen that thing before, it can't kill anyone," Su Ming said. At this time, the Overlord soft turtle was lying underwater, several hundred meters away from the sand mining ship. In front of it, there is a child with round iron bumps as long as his forearms. Although it has been soaked in the river water for many years, the surface of the iron lump is covered with patina, but if there are military enthusiasts underwater, they will definitely be able to tell at a glance that this is a mortar shell from the World War II era. Super Zoo. Author, Yin Seg Nian Bai. Chapter 374. During World War II, China and Japan fought bloody battles in the Yangtze River more than once. In order to prevent Japanese warships from entering the Yangtze River, the ruling authorities even went so far as to bomb and sink decommissioned warships and a large number of fishing boats, blocking the river mouth. Later, millions of troops crossed the Yangtze River. Battle, so there are many wreckage of the war under the water of this section of the Yangtze River. This mortar shell that did not explode for unknown reasons was one of them. When the overlord soft turtle first caught fish at the bottom of the Yangtze River, he discovered some sunken shipwrecks. Su Ming, out of fun, asked him to look around, maybe he could find treasures. After searching for a long time, I couldn't find even half a dime of treasure, but I found this cannonball. Strictly speaking, it was several artillery shells and some rusty ship weapons. In comparison, this mortar shell seemed to be the least powerful. The overlord turtle lurked at the bottom of the water, carefully pushing the cannonball with its front paws, heading towards the sand mining ship. He was afraid that if he moved too hard, it would blow up the thing, he would just dig a hole and jump. At this distance, no matter how thick the overlord turtle's shell is, it's useless. Su Ming didn't know much about guns. In fact, the shell itself was protected against explosions. Even if it was hit with a stone, it wouldn't explode. After being soaked in water for so many years, it was really not easy to explode it. However, safety came first, and he commanded the overlord turtle to use the smallest movements to push the cannonballs towards the sinking tracks of the sand mining ship little by little. There were still more than 20 meters away from the crawler tracks, when a large pit appeared under the river surface. I felt a huge suction coming from the direction of the crawler tracks, and the sediment on the bottom of the water flowed towards the crawler tracks. There is also a rotating crushing device under the crawler track. If an oversized stone is encountered, the stone will be crushed to prevent the crawler track from being blocked. This distance is already the limit of how close the overlord turtle can get. If you move forward, the overlord turtle will be sucked in accidentally and twisted into mud. Su Ming directed it to push the small cannonball forward one last time, then quickly turned around and fled away from the tracks. The overlord turtle kicked its 3 legs in the water, and soon moved away from the sand dredger. It found a big stone at the bottom of the water and hid behind it. The biological instinct made it feel that something big was going to happen next. The big stone was not enough to give it a sense of security, so it dug a hole in the bottom of the river and hid it, leaving only the thick shell exposed. Under the suction of the sand mining ship's tracks, the small round cannonball slowly rolled towards the entrance of the track along with the sand and gravel being sucked in, round and round and round and round. On the deck, several young men were surrounding Wu Dachan, trying to flatter him. Angkor is really clever. He dismissed the old experts from the province with just a few words. Seeing their dejected looks makes me want to laugh. And that little bastard named Su, thinks that just finding an expert will help? Dream on. But the strong man he brought with him is so capable, he is probably a retired Special Forces soldier. Wu Dachan stood among the people, his face gloomy. He was better off after Su Ming kicked him in the stomach, but the subsequent kick broke one of his front teeth. On his own territory, he was kicked by a young man and his face was full of peach blossoms. This was too humiliating. Big. Able to fight? It doesn't matter if he can fight. How can he still be invulnerable if he can fight? Wu Dachan's accent leaked and he said viciously, find a few people to feel their bottoms, find his house, and spend money to hire a migrant worker from out of town. They were killed on the road. Wuchanda was able to become the leading old gangster in Beihai town. His biggest characteristic is that he is cruel and ruthless. Ordinary gangsters fight for nothing more than wine bottles and steel pipes. Few dare to kill him and cause murder, but Wuchinda is different. Sand mining is a lucrative business. There are many people who want to get involved in this business. In the early years, several bosses with similar power as Wu Daqin competed with him for business. In the end, they all ended up miserable. They were beaten for no reason. Disabled, one even lost his life. The police have been investigating these cases, but Wu Daqin is very cunning and never uses his own men to do these things, leaving no evidence at all. In the fight with Su Meng just now, Wu Daqin felt aggrieved because he lost. He had never suffered such a big loss in his life, so he had serious thoughts. You remember, when we look for people from black coal mines, those miners don't use their real identities. After checking it out, neither the big man nor the one named Su can be spared. Don't give it to them. Teach me a lesson, no one will dare to mess with me in the future. Wu Daqin was talking when suddenly, there was a muffled sound under the water. At the same time, a wave of water rose into the sky from the stern of the ship, and the track that was transporting sand and gravel upwards was cut off directly from it. The sand and gravel above were like hidden weapons, flying all over the sky, and hitting the deck like rain hitting plantains. The deck was banged, and the hull of the sand mining ship shook violently. What the hell? Wu Daqin was unsteady on his feet, staggered twice, and fell onto the deck. He was shocked to find that the hull of the sand mining ship began to slowly tilt to one side. Angkor is in trouble, it's in trouble. A boy ran over from the stern of the boat and crawled over. His forehead was hit by a flying stone and was bloody. He yelled in panic, it seems like a mine was hit, a big hole was blown into the side of the ship. Water mine? Where the hell did the mine come from? Wu Daqin was completely dumbfounded. He had been mining sand in the river for more than a day or two. He had never heard of it. There were mines in the river? It's not a war. If you let a mine go, who will you blow up? Is the government bombing fishermen? Zhang had some sunken ships from the war in his heart. He knew this. There might be unexploded bombs inside, and fishermen had salvaged them before. However, the shipwreck areas are all concentrated in the deep water area in the middle of the river, while sand mining ships generally operate in shallow water areas of about 10 meters, making it completely impossible to encounter them. Even if he broke his head, he would not have guessed that just now when he was pointing Zhongshan to destroy Su Ming, a king turtle was sneaking under the water, carrying a broken shell from the center of the river to the diving area. No matter how good the explosion-proof measures are, the shell can't withstand the crushing equipment of the sand mining ship. It would be strange if it doesn't explode. Wu Daqin didn't have time to think too much. The cabin of the sand mining ship was filled with heavy sand and gravel. It sank at an alarming speed, and less than half of it sank in the blink of an eye. Lifeboat! Lifeboat! Angkor, the lifeboat was blown up. Not far away, Professor Chu and the others were depressed on the fishery boat when they heard a loud bang in the distance. Before they could figure out what happened, the huge sand mining boat began to tilt and sink in the river. What is going on? Lao Chu's eyes almost dropped. Director Song looked at Su Ming in astonishment. Su Ming chuckled, spread his hands and winked at old Song, then rushed to old Chu and said loudly, Professor Chu, we have to save people. Don't go there anymore. They are all going to drown. Although the sand mining ship is operating in shallow water, it is still dozens of meters away from the river. When the ship sinks, it will form a vortex in the water and generate suction. No matter how good the water is, people will be swept to the bottom and drown alive. Yes, Xiao Su is right, hurry up and sail the boat to save people. The Fishery Administration boat was a slightly larger speedboat, and it quickly arrived at the sand mining vessel. At this time, 70 to 80% of the hull of the sand mining ship had already sunk into the river at an angle, and it was sinking faster and faster. Wu Dachan and a group of boys gathered on the small deck that finally emerged from the water, panicking. Frustrated, he shouted for help. Anyone who commits injustice will be punished by death. Although there are many fishing boats on the river, none of them came to rescue them. They were all watching their excitement from a distance. Seeing the fishery administration boat go and come back, Wu Dachan seemed to have seen a life-saving straw. He waved hard to the fishing boat and yelled. Su Ming took a large loudspeaker, stood at the bow of the ship, and said calmly, "People over there, pay attention, people over there, pay attention, people over there have ideas." He repeated the sentence a dozen times, and the sand mining boat opposite sank a lot further. Wu Dachan and the others had no place to stand. The water had already reached their calves. They hurriedly followed the hot pot. Like ants. Wu Dachan cursed in his heart, "I have noticed it a long time ago, you are screaming, 'Come and save me.' Hey, 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 this is a sound test, hey, 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 can the person on the other side hear you? This is a sound test." Wu Dachan was so angry that he spurted out a mouthful of old blood. "Are you kidding me? You are deaf. The sound from the loudspeaker is so loud that you can hear it from the other side of the river. You still ask us if we can hear it? I am not deaf." However, he finally understood that Su Ming was definitely delaying time on purpose. After saying hey, 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 the river water is almost up to their thighs. Lao Chu was stunned for a moment on the boat, and then he understood Su Ming's intention. He and Director Song looked at each other, shook their heads and laughed at the same time. Su Ming was a very bad boy. The fishery administration boat was less than 20 meters away from Wu Dachan and the others, but it stopped taking a step forward. Su Ming put one hand on his hips and held a loudspeaker in the other, lazily shouting, "Old Wu, what did you just say about sturgeons? The fish has been released. Our boat is going to look for sturgeons now. We don't have time to save you. However, don't worry, don't be afraid. We have already called the police for you. Please wait patiently. I estimate that the police will call you in half an hour at most. We'll be here." "Hey, hey, hey, don't go, don't go," Wu Dachan's voice was filled with tears. The river water had already reached their lower abdomens. In 5 minutes, let alone half an hour, he would be drowned alive. In half an hour, just wait to collect his body. Fortunately, he still kept his mind clear. When Su Ming mentioned sturgeon, how could he not understand? At this time, it was important to save the little one, and he couldn't care about anything else. He could only howl loudly at the top of his lungs, "I didn't release the sturgeon, hurry up and save us, and I will return the sturgeon to you." Super Zoo. Author, Yin Seg Nian Bai. Chapter 375. After hearing Wu Dachan admit that he had hidden the sturgeon, Lao Chu was overjoyed and ordered the fishery administration boat to rescue people. "Wait a minute," Su Ming stopped the captain. As soon as the delay occurred, the sand mining ship sank again. Most of the hull was still on the water just now, but now the hull is completely invisible. From a distance, it looks like Wu Dachan and a few of his brothers are standing on the water practicing floating on the water. It looks super cool. But the pain in his heart is only known by himself. As he sank into the water little by little, the suction force under his feet became stronger and stronger. Wu Dachan was anxious to death. If he wanted to blame someone, he could only blame himself for being careless. According to normal configuration, such a large sand mining ship should be equipped with at least a small lifeboat, which is used to escape in such a situation. But Wu Dachan's ship was originally a second-hand ship, and there was no lifeboat on it. He felt that spending money to buy that thing was purely a decoration. The ship was in the Yangtze River, near the coast, and not in the deep water area or the sea. How could it sink? This is like many people driving without wearing seat belts. Obviously, seat belts are one of the most important safety facilities and are equipped in every car, but many people think that wearing this thing is too troublesome and looks old-fashioned. They think that their driving skills are not bad and it is impossible for them to have an accident. When an accident really happens, it is too late to regret. There are several lifebuoys on the side of the ship, but they are useless. The ship is slowly sinking, and a large amount of river water pours into the cabin, causing whirlpools around the ship. Undercurrents surge under the water, and the suction is very strong. Even with a lifebuoy, 9 out of 10 will be sucked under the water and drowned. This is still his own fault. The original location of the sand mining ship was not so deep, but he has been digging sand here for many years, and he has dug a big hole in the riverbed nearby, making the river water in this section much deeper than other places, which directly led to the appearance of a large number of whirlpools and undercurrents. Although the river is wide, it is relative to a small river. Compared with the vast ocean, it is nothing. You can see the other side at a glance. There are many fishing boats on the river. If they find a boat about to sink, the nearby fishing boats will definitely lend a helping hand without hesitation. The problem is that after seeing clearly that it is Wu Dachen's sand mining boat, the nearby fishing boats have no intention of approaching. Wu Dachen was so anxious that his face turned pale and sweated profusely on the boat. He watched the boat sink little by little and the water gradually flooded over the deck. Su Ming, however, stood at the bow of the boat as if nothing had happened, holding a loudspeaker and asked slowly, "Where is the sturgeon?" I raise it at home." Wu Dachen was about to cry. "I say, old Wu, why do you raise that thing? You are not going to eat it yourself, are you?" Su Ming asked. I'll sell it, okay, come and save people." Su Ming turned around and asked Liang Shi, who was filming with a DV, "Did you take it?" "I took it all, clearly," Liang Shi nodded vigorously. "Come on, save people," Su Ming snapped his fingers at the captain of the fishery administration boat. The follow-up was very smooth. After Wu Dachen was rescued, Su Ming used some tough measures to control them in order to prevent him from transferring evidence. He immediately asked Su Ming to accompany Liang Shi, Professor Chu, and several fishery staff to Wu Dachen's home and seize 2 white sturgeons. Wu Dachen's home is a 3-story villa with a yard. It is decorated like Caesar's palace. It is magnificent and very famous in the town. You can find the location by just asking anyone. He has 2 big wolf dogs at home. Wu Dachen's wife is used to being domineering, and they only have the right to smash others. Today, when someone rushed into their home, they were not very obedient. They howled and commanded the 2 big wolf dogs to pounce on Lao Chu and others. This time, Su Ming didn't need to use his mental power at all. Su Ming let out a roar like a beast, which scared the 2 dogs so much that their legs went weak. They pinched their necks and threw them out of the courtyard wall. After Su Ming and his team returned to the fishery administration boat with 2 sturgeons, the police who received the alarm call also sent people to rush over. The county town was only a dozen minutes away from the river. A boat sank in the river. This news quickly spread to 2 counties. In addition to the previous alarm from the Academy of Agricultural Sciences, the 3 relevant counties immediately made a decision to send the nearest police force to the riverside for emergency treatment. The team was led by a deputy director of the County Public Security Bureau. He took a small fishing boat and jumped onto the fishery administration boat with several policemen. Fortunately, no one died. Including Wu Dachen, a total of 9 people on the sand mining boat were rescued. Their hands were tied with plastic buckles on their thumbs and tied behind their backs. They were all stuffed into the small cabin of the fishery administration boat. When the deputy director boarded the boat, he saw that the small cabin of less than 5 square meters was like a can, crowded with people. Wu Daqin put his face against the window and asked the deputy director for help. "What's going on?" The deputy director's face sank slightly and asked the staff on the fishery administration boat. Lao Chu stood up, revealed his identity, and then told the deputy director everything that happened today. During the illegal sand mining process, the sand mining ship may have sucked up a bomb left over from World War II, which blew a big hole in the ship and sank it. Illegal sand mining, illegal capture of first-class protected animals, and the evidence is conclusive. Wu Daqin can't deny it even if he wants to. If it were just these two items, maybe Wu Daqin could still find a way to get away with it, but with the explosion story, it's definitely not as simple as 1 + 1 = 2. In recent years, environmental protection has always been a hot topic. Illegal sand mining ship exploded, stealing national protected animals. These few pieces of news together, brewing and fermenting, will soon become an explosive news. As expected, the deputy director had just asked about the situation, and the county leaders called. The nearest Yangchuan TV station and the provincial capital Jiangjin TV station both received the video shot by Liang Shi, and called almost one after another to request an interview. "Professor Chu, your comrades from the Academy of Agricultural Sciences were the first to call the police. You also provided first-hand evidence and witnessed the whole process on the spot. The county asked me to express gratitude on their behalf. In addition, several media want to interview. As a party involved, our police hope that you can also attend," the deputy director said. Professor Chu waved his hand. "You really don't need to thank me. I also came here after receiving the news. If you want to thank someone, thank this comrade. This is Deputy Director Su of Yangchuan Zoo. He is young, strong, and experienced. He is the one who witnessed the whole thing from beginning to end. He also risked his life to negotiate with the other party on the boat. He was the one who saved people in the end. Let him represent us." "Old director?" Su Ming asked Director Song in a tentative tone. "It's the era of you young people. We old guys should have retired long ago. Besides, you are the hero today," Director Song said with a smile. "Nice to meet you, nice to meet you, thank you very much for your help." The deputy director shook hands with Su Ming enthusiastically and said, "This Wu Daqin has brought this upon himself. To be honest, we have been keeping an eye on him for a long time. This man has a bad record in the town and is suspected of many illegal incidents. We have been looking for solid evidence, but this man is very cunning, has strong anti-reconnaissance capabilities, and is careful and cautious. We have very few clues left. The reason why we have not moved the sand mining ship for the time being is to paralyze him and avoid alerting the enemy. With the evidence you provided today, we can open a breakthrough and take this opportunity to conduct a thorough investigation." Su Ming listened to the deputy director and nodded slightly with a smile. He was sure of one thing: Wu Daqin was going to be in big trouble this time. "Then how should I cooperate with the police?" Su Ming asked at last. The deputy director laughed and said, "According to the procedure, I'm afraid I'll have to trouble you to go back and take notes with us, and explain the details of what happened. In addition, we will hold a press conference later. When facing media interviews, I hope both sides can unify the caliber." "I understand, you can rest assured about this," Su Ming said. "Haha, Mr. Su is really a straightforward person. No wonder the two old comrades value him so much." The deputy director laughed, patted Su Ming on the shoulder, and then said, "Deputy Director Su, you are not only a witness, but you risked your life to protect wild animals. This is a heroic act. We must publicize and commend you. Fight criminals and maintain social harmony and justice." Su Ming said with a smile, "I have to give you a banner. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Super Zoo. Author, Yin Seg Nian Bai. Chapter 376. That night, a reporter from Yangchuan City TV station arrived. The person in charge of the interview was a colleague of Nangong Yan. He had met Su Ming several times. When he saw Su Ming coming all the way, he ran over with a smile and said, "Su, what are you doing? The frequency of TV appearances every year is almost as high as that of professional hosts like us." Su Ming was dressed in red and colorful, wearing a ribbon that said environmental protection is everyone's responsibility, and a rather rustic big red flower on his chest. He said with a smile, "Then your TV station won't offer me any service fees." A small press conference was held on the riverside to announce the investigation process and conclusion. Since well-known Yangchuan entrepreneurs were involved in the incident, Yangchuan City TV station really spent a lot of money. Other media simply sent one or two reporters to attend the press conference to obtain first-hand information. In just half a day, Yangchuan City was stunned to form a reporting team, equipped with complete video equipment, and staged a big scene. Nangong's colleagues brought a camera crew to interview the participants of the incident one by one. Su Ming didn't feel too excited. He counted on his fingers. As he joked with the reporter, he was a little numb after being on camera too many times. He had long lost the excitement of the first time. It doesn't matter if you have too many debts, if you have too many lice, it doesn't matter if you have too much money, and if you have too many honors, it doesn't matter. Su Ming didn't think it was a big deal, but Nangong Huang was so excited that he couldn't sleep and was jumping up and down in the hotel room. When the press conference was held in the evening, he was honored and sat in the front row. This was his first time to participate in such a high-profile occasion, and as a direct participant in protecting the white sturgeon, he also accepted a few minutes of interviews and a small appearance on TV. Half a month ago, Nangong Huang was still an idle non-mainstream hairdresser, a worry for the entire Nangong family. Not only are the adults of the Nangong family worried, Nangong Huang himself also knows that his usual rebellious state is caused by a rebellious mentality. In fact, he wants to prove his worth more than anyone else. After working with Su Ming for half a month, not only did he get a dream job, he also changed his look, and now he actually appeared on TV and received awards for meritorious service. He was absolutely elated, his sense of self-esteem was rising, and he was busy giving my family members were on the phone, proudly showing off what they had experienced today. My dad just looks down on people and keeps saying I'm worthless. Mom, look at me hanging out with my brother-in-law and becoming a people's hero. Nangong Huang didn't have a tail, otherwise it would have been raised to the sky at this moment. Not long after, Nangong Yan called. "I said you are such an adult, why can't you let me have some peace of mind? You just ran out to play for a day, and you got involved with some murderer again, and you broke into the villain's lair alone. Do you think you are Superman? What will you do in the future? Before you do anything, can you think of me?" Su Ming chuckled, "Don't worry, your colleague's talk with Nangong Huang was just exaggerated, not that dangerous. Su Ming was with me at the time." You. Nangong Yanjiao snarled, and then said with a bit of pride, "Nangong Huang's father is at my house. You don't even know that my uncle has never shown a smile. I just heard that the thing about Nangong Huang is so scary. He also said that when you are free, I will treat you to a meal. What's going on? I've never met my old father-in-law, but my brother-in-law and his father invite me to dinner first," Su Ming said funny. "This is called passing 3 levels. Let me say hello to you in advance. My family is full of police officers. You can pass each level with ease," Nangong Yan said proudly. "Your family must have never read online novels. The big boss sends his men down one by one to give experience points and equipment to the protagonist. If I were your father, I would appear directly from the beginning. Maybe I still have a chance of winning." You, my dad is not the guardian boss. After hanging up the phone with Nangong Niwai, Nangong Huang squatted on the sofa, smoking a cigarette in Yunshan's mist, with a look of enjoyment on his face. He waved his hand to disperse the smoke in front of his eyes, and looked at Su Ming seriously. "Brother-in-law, you were talking about online novels just now, and I suddenly thought of a sentence that is particularly suitable for you." "Ah? What are you talking about? Why are you so cool?" Su Ming asked curiously. Nangong Huang shook his head, looked at Su Ming with the eyes of an idol, and said word for word, "If you want to wear the crown, you must bear its weight. Brother-in-law, I think only one who is as calm as you can be worthy of so many titles. You're so young, but you already know how to flatter me, and you do it so bluntly." Su Ming rolled his eyes. "Also, these words are not from fantasy novels, they are from the British royal family." As he was talking, the door of the room was pushed open, and Lao Chu walked in with a sullen face. "Hey, Professor Chu, come and sit down. Nangong, go get some tea." Seeing old Chu, Su Ming quickly jumped out of bed, with a flattering look on his face, as if he owed old Chu money. Lao Chu's expression was just the opposite. He looked at Su Ming, his nose was not his nose or his face, and he said angrily, "You are too cunning. I am an 80-year-old old lady. I accidentally got tricked by you. Last time. The finless porpoise is like this, and this time the white sturgeon is like this. Are you specially sent by God to make things difficult for me?" The two white sturgeons ended up in the zoo. Originally, Su Ming was planning to ask Director Song and Old Chu to argue. In fact, Director Song and Old Chu had been arguing all the way over the ownership of the paddlefish, but there was still no result. Later, Su Ming thought, "How stupid am I? Currently, the de facto supervisory power of the paddlefish is already in his own hands, so why bother? Just send it back to the zoo and that's it." During the press conference, Su Ming did not discuss with Lao Chu, but pretended to mention that the zoo had already built an aquarium and would take good care of the two sturgeons, making the matter a fait accompli. When Lao Chu reacted, the two white sturgeons were already on the way to the zoo. He, Professor Chu, calm down. Animals, it doesn't matter where they are protected. Your subordinate protection center is rich and powerful, with abundant resources, so just take care of the zoos in our places." Su Ming smiled and sold small for small. The fact is just as Su Ming said, protection is protection wherever it is, and keeping it in the zoo can create some economic value, not to mention that the facilities and conditions of the zoo are not necessarily worse than those of the Provincial Protection Center. But emotionally, Lao Chu still couldn't accept it for a while, and he was holding his breath, so he ran to Su Ming's room late at night to scold him to vent his anger. Su Ming is young, and Professor Chu is an old senior. It's not a personal grudge. It's okay to scold him. It's no big deal. After a long time of persuasion, old Chu reluctantly calmed down. However, Su Ming's next sentence almost made old Chu explode. Professor Chu. Su Ming looked worried about the country and the people, and said, "I saw that the two white sturgeons are both females. I heard from Liangshi that, the white sturgeon in the Provincial Protection Center is a male. The strongest fortress is always breached from the inside. Everything is afraid of traitors." With Liang Shishi, Su Ming knows the situation of the Protection Center of the Academy of Agricultural Sciences. "What are you going to do?" Old Chu's two thick eyebrows were about to come together. He jumped up from the chair and stared at Su Ming with wide eyes. Professor Chu, this is what I think. Since the two white sturgeons are in the zoo, why not just send the one in the protection center to the zoo and raise it together, so that they can have a company?" Su Ming said shamelessly. The corners of old Chu's mouth could not help but twitch twice. He was almost speechless because of Su Ming's anger. This kid is too greedy. It's fine to send the two newly discovered sturgeons to the zoo, but he actually set his sights on the sturgeons in the conservation center. "Professor Chu, no kidding, serious." Su Ming restrained his smile, His tone gradually became serious, and he analyzed seriously, our cooperation is a win-win situation. The 2 sturgeons are female, and the one in the conservation center is male. If we raise them separately, they will still become extinct in the future, but if we put them together and let them reproduce and give birth to baby sturgeons, this population can continue. And I promise that it will still be in accordance with the previous cooperation model for finless porpoises. If the comrades of the Academy of Agricultural Sciences want to do research, the zoo will definitely provide convenient conditions. Su Ming's words are right in terms of emotion and reason, but just as Su Ming considers the problem from the perspective of the zoo, Old Chu must also stand from the perspective of the conservation center. Give it to Su Ming, that's called elbow outward. Don't give it, then just sit and watch the white sturgeon in the province become extinct. Unless you are extremely lucky and catch a wild female sturgeon before the male fish dies at the conservation center, the probability is obviously very small. Seeing that Old Chu frowned and hesitated, Su Ming coughed and said with a heavier tone, "Professor Chu, you are an old veteran and expert in the industry. I have always admired you. I think that if the small interests of our respective units eventually lead to the extinction of the white sturgeon in our province, then both of us will be historical sinners. Don't give me that. You are too unkind. You have learned to preach to me. I am so old, can I fall for your trick?" Old Chu glared at Su Ming angrily. Although he was angry, he had to admit that Su Ming made sense. Finally, he could only make a painful decision: the male sturgeon in the conservation center can be given to you, but the first batch of sturgeon larvae born in the future must all be returned to the conservation center. "No problem," Su Ming gave a thumbs up and said with a smile, "Old Senior is very righteous. Come on, stop flattering me. I have to leave quickly. If I sit down again, you might trick me out of something again." Professor Chu was very depressed. He originally came to ask for an explanation and vent his anger. How come he was persuaded by this kid and handed over the sturgeon in the conservation center to him? This is a loss of both the wife and the army. Super Zoo. Author, Yin Seg Nian Bai. Chapter 377. There was still one day before Hong Fei's battle to restore her reputation. Su Ming would take a few hours to deal with the beginning and end of the shipwreck. In fact, there was nothing to deal with. The main thing was to take notes and provide evidence to kill Wu Dachun. This old gangster in Beihe town became a prisoner overnight and was condemned by thousands of people. He was carrying a black pot bigger than a turtle shell, and there was no possibility of turning over. In the following time, Zhao Yun and I continued to fish in the river. Su Ming still had a little hope in his heart that he could find shad, so he was fishing on the surface, but secretly controlled the overlord turtle to search in the river. Facts have proved that shad is probably really extinct. At least for most of the day, the overlord turtle searched every inch of the nearby 2 kilometers, and didn't even see a hair of shad. Su Ming was quite open-minded. Before a species becomes extinct, it should be protected as much as possible. If it becomes extinct, there is no need to worry too much. In the hundreds of thousands of years of history of the Earth, too many species have become extinct. Even the dinosaurs, which were so powerful, became extinct. Why must shad exist? The only pity is that the economic value of shad is very high. Zhao Yun did not catch any knife fish after all. Even the dozens of fishing boats in Huiying County did not catch any knife fish that day. The number of knife fish was on the verge of extinction. The 10 days yesterday were considered great luck. At noon the next day, in the hotel banquet hall as before, all the chefs gathered together again. When Hong Fei appeared with a crutch, the whole room burst into applause. Since only Hong Fei performed today, it was equivalent to her personal show. After Hong Fei appeared, the lights in the whole venue dimmed at once, and all the lights gathered on the stage to illuminate Hong Fei. A scent of Chanel No. 5 hit her face. This time, Ding Jing learned her lesson and did not wear high heels to show off to distract Hong Fei. In the dark, she appeared quietly like a ghost and sat down at Su Ming's table. "Mr. Su, you are really a person who can't sit still. I haven't seen you for a day or two, and you have turned the Yangtze River upside down." Ding Jing also heard about what happened on the river the day before yesterday, and talked about it as if chatting. "Turning the world upside down? I am still playing Neza in the sea," Su Ming said with a smile. Ding Jing glanced at Su Ming with twinkling eyes, and automatically imagined the scene of Su Ming wearing a red belly band and pigtails and setting off bombs. She couldn't help but pursed her lips and smiled, and then said seriously, "Please take good care of her in the future." She was referring to Hong Fei, of course. Su Ming pointed to the stage and said, "Are you so confident in her? What if she fails again today?" Ding Jing shook her head, squinted at Hong Fei on the stage, and murmured, "You are not a chef, you don't understand. A chef of her level will never fail a second time." Su Ming couldn't remember how he spent the next 2 hours. His mind was full of the aftertaste of the fairy meat. In the parking lot of the county, Su Ming, Su Mang, Nangong Huang, and Zhao Yun, each holding a bottle of mineral water, squatted on the ground to rinse their mouths. The taste of the fairy meat seemed to have been deeply imprinted in their taste buds. After a few bottles of mineral water, they could not forget it at all. "Brother-in-law, I was cheated by the old woman Hong Fei. I was definitely cheated by this little woman. I shouldn't have been greedy and tasted it." Su Ming nodded vigorously. "You can't say that. I'm still romantic even if I die under the peony flowers. I'm finally mentally balanced to be able to eat such delicious dishes. Those old mountain ginseng whiskers are worth it," Zhao Yun said. A dish of fairy meat was amazing. The portion was not large. Only a dozen people present at the time were lucky enough to taste a small bite. Among them were the 4 people from the Su family who provided the ingredients. "Confucius said that you don't know the taste of meat for 3 months. Su Ming said that Confucius was right. After taking this bite of fairy meat, the whole person was in a trance, and the taste buds on the tongue were about to explode. It was absolutely the best delicacy in the world. The sequelae was that Su Ming now tasted any meat like chewing wax. Not knowing the taste of meat for 3 months might be a bit exaggerated, but within 10 days or half a month, I'm afraid he wouldn't have any appetite for any food. If you want to keep a man's heart, you must first keep his stomach." This sentence is basically nonsense for most women, but obviously, Hong Fei is such a person. As long as there are top quality ingredients, the dishes she makes are indeed so attractive. "Brother-in-law, this is not right," Nangong Huang said mysteriously. "I think that old woman is seducing you." "Which old woman?" Su Ming asked. "Hong Fei. Think about it, her cooking is so delicious. If she marries someone else in the future, we won't be able to eat it. How depressing. You might as well keep her, anyway you are not short of money, buy a house to support her." "Stop talking nonsense, where did you learn these things as a student? We are just working relationship." Su Ming stared at him for a long time. "Are you not testing me for your sister? What's wrong with being a student? There are so many girls who are kept in our technical school." Zhao Yun said, "Anyway, if you can keep this woman in your restaurant business will definitely be popular in the future." In the hotel, Hong Fei was talking on the phone with Hong Bo. "Have you decided? Go work for others instead of starting your own business. If you want to start a business, Dad still has some money here, not enough to open a big restaurant. Rent a small storefront and start from scratch." Hong Bo asked on the other end of the phone. "Dad, I have thought it through very clearly. I am not the material for doing business at all. Just think about it clearly. Anyway, there is only one thing. You must not go to work in cyclamen, otherwise I will hit you to death." Hong Fei interrupted Hong Bo depressedly. "Dad, can you not say such things? You are a grown man, and you always cry, make trouble, and hang yourself. Are you embarrassed to threaten your daughter with death? Don't worry, I am the second time I went to the catering department of the zoo scenic area. From the boss to the employees, they were all real men. That's good, that's good. Hey, let me ask you, does Mr. Su have a girlfriend? Hong Fi Fei, Dad, how much do you dislike me, and you want to marry me off so much? Speaking of business, I think that since I have agreed to this, I will do it well. The zoo's hotel is in its infancy and needs manpower. Isn't our restaurant still open? We need to place a group of old employees. The other party is willing to accept them. Dad, you can ask them if they want to come and go to the zoo with me. The 4-day trip to Huayin County was over, and when I came back there was another Hong Fi Fei with a crutch. To Su Ming's expectation, Hong Fi Fei was surprisingly capable. Not only could she cook, but she also knew all the matters related to the hotel. Su Ming did not need to worry about the construction of the Tingfeng Pavilion restaurant in the zoo. The zoo allocated funds, that's fine, even the waiters and kitchen helpers are ready-made, most of them are skilled workers she brought from Hongjia cuisine. Hong Fi Fei dragged an injured leg and immediately got into work mode, personally presiding over the redesign of Tingfeng Pavilion. On the decoration site, every day you can see a somewhat thin body, limping and directing inspections. Several key projects at present, such as the hot springs in the back mountain, the tomb scenic spot, and road construction, are being carried out in an orderly manner. The one that originally needed Su Ming's attention the most was the construction of the Tingfeng Pavilion restaurant. With Hong Fi Fei's help, Su Ming could spare some time. The money became much richer, so he turned his attention to fishing companies. A small pier has been built on the reservoir. 12 newly purchased small yachts and a cruise ship are moored at the pier. They are mainly used by fishing companies for fish farming, and are also open to tourists for fishing on yachts. The business has only just begun, so there are not many tourists, but more and more citizens have learned from various channels that the reservoir has an additional place for leisure travel. Several kinds of fish were brought back, including 3 white sturgeons that were over 1 meter long and had long noses, and a family of finless porpoises, which lived in a large tank in the aquarium. Su Ming was initially worried about a fight between a paddlefish and a finless porpoise. Strictly speaking, it was a paddlefish beating a finless porpoise. Paddlefish are not very good-tempered. They are used to poking with their long, hard snouts when there is nothing wrong. In the past, when there were many paddlefish in the Yangtze River, small fishing boats would often break a hole inexplicably. It is the masterpiece of the paddlefish. Their snout is the most powerful attack weapon, even more powerful than a spear gun underwater. But in fact, the 3 white sturgeons and the finless porpoise family get along very harmoniously. Sometimes the 2 little finless porpoises will use their 2 short fins to hold the white sturgeon's long snout and roll around in a coquettish manner. The fish was not angry either, and it was running around like a roller coaster in the water with the little finless porpoise. The atmosphere in the aquarium suddenly became more lively, and the number of tourists increased, mainly parents bringing their children. After a period of running in between the giant salamander and the alligator, although they still disliked each other, they finally stopped fighting and turned their attention to the camera. They put on various big shows in the live broadcast every day to steal the limelight. But when the overlord turtle arrived, he immediately became the public enemy of these 2 guys. Both the giant salamander and the alligator have 4 legs, but this new guy only has 3 legs. Why do you only have 3 legs when I have 4 legs? Are you trying to steal the limelight? Su Ming also specially educated these 2 people for this. It is difficult to turn 3 legs into 4 legs, but the other way around is too easy. If you 2 are willing, I can definitely help you turn into 3 legs. The giant salamander and alligator immediately became silent. Fortunately, the overlord turtle also knew that he was a newcomer. Newcomers had no human rights and couldn't beat a crocodile in a fight, so he simply acted like an old god. The biggest harvest from the trip to Huiying County was the yellow catfish and pufferfish, several river fish with good economic value. Liang Shi led a few classmates to circle a water area in the reservoir for pilot breeding. If everything went well, there will be several more economic fish species in the reservoir next year. Of the 12 sorry fish, 2 were given to Zhao Yun, and the remaining 10 are the key protection targets. Once artificial breeding is realized, the economic value will definitely be the highest among all fish in the reservoir. There are still several minor technical problems, and Liang Shi is organizing manpower to research and solve them. Science is the primary productive force, respecting talents and attaching importance to scientific research. Su Ming specially approved a scientific research fund for Liang Shi, allowing him to become a small scientific research department within the fishery company, specializing in fish artificial breeding research and using scientific technology. Promote production. This afternoon, Su Ming was processing a document sent from Xiangjiang Ocean Park after the 2 giant pandas were lent out. The zoo communicated regularly with the zoo every week and paid attention to the status of the 2 pandas. They were very professional. The office internal phone suddenly rang. When I picked it up, it was Xiao Li, the administrator of Xiangshan. "Boss, those 2 giant pandas are not very good, why don't you come and take a look?" Xiao Li said hesitantly. Super Zoo. Author, Yin Seg Nian Bai. Chapter 378. Is the giant panda in trouble? When Su Ming heard this, his scalp started to buzz. There were pandas in Yangchuan Zoo N years ago, and a panda pavilion was built, not far from Bear Mountain. Later, the pandas from Yangchuan City were loaned to the capital zoo to support the construction of the capital. Since they left and never returned, the panda hall of Yangchuan City Zoo has been empty. 2 giant pandas from Xiangjiang, Yingying, and Lele, now live in the panda house and are cared for by Xiao Li, a keeper at Xiangshan. After the arrival of these 2 pandas, they caused quite a stir in Yangchuan City and attracted a large number of tourists in a short period of time. These 2 pandas also lived like gods. They were treated as ancestors by the zoo and were supported by them. It was really hard to dare to give them the moon if they wanted stars. Their daily food expenses were several times higher than the standard of Su Ming, the deputy director of the zoo. There are people who go to the panda house to check their health every day, lest they become anxious, and there are also dedicated people who go to the panda house to play with them. The so-called play means treating them like adult pillars, being climbed up and down by these 2 fat guys. Xiao Li is a very experienced administrator, and his tone is a bit heavy. If other animals were better, the significance of these 2 giant pandas is too great. They are not only national treasures, but also related to the fact that they were originally lent to the Yangchuan City Zoo to promote friendship between the 2 parties. What if there are 3 long and 2 short? Moreover, the panda house is always live broadcasting, so if something happens to the pandas, they won't be able to hide it even if they want to. Xiao Li, turn off the panda house camera immediately. I'm coming over now. Su Ming didn't even have time to ask about the panda's specific situation. He hung up the phone in a few words and walked out of the office and went downstairs. When I got downstairs, I whistled at the woods not far away, and 2 huge horse heads popped out of the woods. After De Quavo and Shivasaurus came to the zoo, they finally broke away from the boring life of the stable and the arena before. In addition to playing with the grass and mud horses, they spent most of the day wandering around the zoo, and sometimes accompanied by Su Ming, I would go for a walk in the back mountains. I felt free, without any business pressure, and my mental state was very good. Horses are very humane. De Kui Huo is Nangong Yan's mount. Occasionally Nangong Huang will ride one. When he saw it was Su Ming, De Kui Huo snorted, shook his head and turned back to the woods to eat grass. The Lion Castle dragon pedaled. As it trotted over, Su Ming didn't have time to put a saddle on it. He hugged its big neck, climbed onto the horse's back, and galloped along the cobblestone path of the zoo in the direction of the panda house. "Give in, give in." It was early in the morning, and there were not many visitors to the zoo. I saw a man riding a tall black horse with long legs and running wildly. It did not cause any panic. Instead, one by one took the initiative to step aside to the side of the road and took photos with their mobile phones. Shivasaurus looked like it. Standard thoroughbred race horses are many times more beautiful than the old horses used for taking photos at tourist attractions. They are rarely seen in cities. Horse riding is a relatively luxurious sport for ordinary citizens. Slightly higher-end domestic horse racing clubs are all membership-based, and the minimum annual membership fee starts in 5 figures. After passing through the main park and arriving at the Panda Pavilion in the northeast corner, Xiaoli had already been waiting at the door. Su Ming got off his horse, rubbed the lion's big head, and signaled it not to run around, and then strode in Panda House, while asking, "What's going on?" Xiaoli followed behind. Lele has been listless all day, eating significantly less, and sometimes sits there for a long time without moving. Su Ming's heart skipped a beat. "Where's Yingying?" "It's digging holes," Xiaoli said with a sad face. It dug several big holes in the ground. Digging a hole, Su Ming and Xiaoli were both professionals in the field of animals. Upon hearing the situation, Su Ming's face turned green. Pandas, such ancient large animals, have certain spirituality. Once they have a premonition that their life is about to come to an end, they will have a situation like what Xiaoli just mentioned and find a suitable tomb for themselves. Digging is one of them. Method: while Lele eats less and sits still, it may mean that he is sick. Just like other people, when he is sick, he has no appetite and no energy. Can't they be so unlucky? The lifespan of these two pandas is only equivalent to that of human adults. They have not even reached middle age. It stands to reason that there are still many years before they die. Could it be caused by acclimatization after coming to the zoo? Or did tourists throw away dirty food? Have you checked it? I haven't done any instrument inspection yet. I thought I'd ask you to come and take a look first before making a decision. Now that pandas are the heart of the zoo, Xiaoli doesn't dare to neglect anything. When he finds something is wrong, he doesn't dare to make his own decision, so he immediately asks Su Ming for instructions. Su Ming pushed open the last door. The interior of the panda pavilion in front of him was almost an acre in size. It had green grass on the ground and a small pool. A few trees were planted in the middle of the grass. The weather was getting hotter and hotter. The awnings and shade are used by pandas to escape the heat. There is a small playground under the shade of the trees, with slides and small swings. The swing is actually 2 ropes hanging from a large rubber tire. The tire is only 30 centimeters above the ground. The 2 fat guys can usually climb up and play by themselves. Lele was sitting listlessly on the rubber tire of the swing, with his head drooped and his forearms hanging on his belly, looking very worried. There are large and small holes everywhere on the grass. Not far from Lele, a section of black and white crotch exposed on the ground is twisting and turning, and the soil is flying around. Yingying is digging a hole. That's wrong. Su Ming felt that something was wrong when he saw Yingying, who was full of energy, digging holes. Large animals do have the behavior of arranging funeral affairs before they die, but the movements are slow. After all, they are going to die, so they must be in low spirits. Who is going to die and still so cheerful? I have never heard that pandas can have a last breath. Seeing Su Ming coming, Lele, who was dazed with his head down, raised his head and glanced at Su Ming from a distance, then lowered his head listlessly, sitting on the big tire and swaying. "Yingying, stop digging, come here." Su Ming strode towards Yingying, who was digging a hole, and shouted. Yingying crawled out of the hole in a flash. Her big black and white head was covered with mud and grass, and she was dirty. She walked with a funny inward-facing step, staggered to Su Ming, stood up, and hugged his thigh. "Be careful, Every time the two pandas hugged his thighs, Su Ming was terrified. They stood up, and their height was about the same as his waist. Their front paws were just holding his thighs. If the sharp claws were not careful, they would be scratched and he could practice the sunflower manual and dominate the world. However, seeing Ying was still quite lively, Su Ming finally felt relieved. He used his mental power to check and found that the vital signs of the two pandas were still very strong and they were not sick. "What's wrong with your wife? Did you have a fight?" Su Ming picked up Ying, and Ying was like a big koala, grabbing Su Ming with her hands and feet. Woof woof. Ying made a sound like a puppy. The vocal cords of pandas are very strange. They can make all kinds of sounds, such as the cry of human babies, the squeak of mice, and the sounds of dogs and sheep. The only thing is that they can't meow like a cat or roar like a bear. Woof woof means Ying is in a good mood, probably because she saw Su Ming. Lele saw Su Ming holding Ying approaching, and turned his body with his back to them. "What's going on?" Su Ming was even more puzzled. Lele used to be very lively. If it was normal, he would have jumped on him. Even if he had a conflict with Ying, there was no need for him to ignore him. Ying jumped down from Su Ming's arms, squatted on the grass, then got up and shook the grass on her buttocks, came to Lele, raised her front paws to pry Lele's body, and wanted to turn it over, but Lele seemed unwilling to pay attention to it and twisted a few times. Ying was also very smart. She couldn't move Lele, so she simply stuck her buttocks and used her head to push the small swing, turning it over. Lele fell down with a thud, rolled twice, and fell on his back in front of Su Ming. "Huh? What happened? Did you pee out of fear?" Su Ming had sharp eyes and saw at a glance that Lele's belly was wet, as if he had peed. That was the reproductive organ. Lele was probably a little shy and quickly covered her belly with her paws to prevent Su Ming from seeing it. "Why are you shy? How can I take advantage of you?" Su Ming squatted down in a bad mood and pinched Lele's flat ears. Lele bleated twice in dissatisfaction and raised her paws to open Su Ming's hand. In this way, Su Ming saw clearly that there was a layer of secretions under Lele's belly, which was sticky and wet. Su Ming's eyes lit up and he shouted loudly without looking back, "No way! Xiao Li, hurry up, let the veterinarian bring the equipment." Okay, Xiao Li turned around and ran out to call the clinic. Soon, the veterinarian came with the testing equipment. Su Ming saw the veterinarian taking tools from the small box, and threatened, "If you take out the Azadi's root again, I will fire you." "Boss, I drink it myself." The veterinarian took out a small thermos cup with Azadi's root from his white coat, sipped a few sips slowly, and then used the equipment to examine Lele. Hormones, defecation, blood. After a series of tests, the veterinarian gave the same result as Su Ming's guess. Lele is pregnant. Oh, I know. When the robber fell into the zoo that day, the two of them were making pandas. At that time, everyone thought that the mating was disturbed by the robber. In fact, when the robber fell, the mating was already completed. It is estimated that it was the winning bid. But, when the panda is pregnant, shouldn't the activity increase significantly? Xiao Li asked puzzledly. That's the theory, the veterinarian said lazily, but depression is not ruled out. Just like people, the little girl was not mentally prepared at all. She got pregnant unexpectedly and was scared. "Ah," Xiao Li muttered inexplicably, then, "do you want an abortion, a painless abortion?" "I'll abort you first." Su Ming was so angry that he laughed. He was so lucky. Pandas only have a few days of estrus a year, and the chance of pregnancy is pitifully small. Since he has caught up with this good thing, Ying and Lele will be returned to Hong Kong Ocean Park in the future, but the panda cub must be kept no matter what. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Super Zoo. Author, Yin Seg Nian Bai. Chapter 379. The matter was finally found out. The recent abnormal behavior of the two pandas was not due to any illness, let alone death. Panda Lele was pregnant. As a girl panda who had never been pregnant before, she seemed to be very uncomfortable with this change for the first time. She was a little at a loss and felt embarrassed. It had nothing to do with depression. As for why Yingying was digging holes everywhere, Su Ming couldn't explain it. Lele was in a bad mood and didn't play with it, so it entertained itself. The keeper Xiao Li was still a little unsure and asked the veterinarian in confusion, "Have you checked it clearly? Don't make a fool of yourself." In the past, other zoos had found out that pandas were pregnant. The zoo was busy for a long time, and even the news media were nervous. In the end, it was found that the panda was not pregnant at all, but was fake pregnant to cheat for better food treatment. This cannot be blamed on the doctor. The panda's embryo is very small. With the current level of technology, it is very difficult to detect the embryo in the panda's stomach. It can only be roughly inferred based on experience and the panda's daily performance and secretions. From a certain perspective, pandas are very intelligent and have human-like emotions, such as joy, anger, sorrow, and even depression. So even if a panda is not pregnant, it may show symptoms of pregnancy, such as eating less, lying down, and being listless. Even if Lele is pregnant, the gestation period has only been less than a month, which makes it more difficult to confirm. The veterinarian did not dare to guarantee it, but Su Ming said without hesitation, whether it is true or not, it must be treated seriously. Xiao Li, you should write a report today to apply for the installation of air conditioners for the panda house and improve the nutritional quality of the food. Don't be afraid to spend money. I will approve the report. The veterinarians are not sure, but Su Ming is now more than 90% sure that Lele is indeed pregnant. Before and after the veterinary examination, he used his mental power to communicate with Lele several times. Under the connection of mental power, Lele could not lie to him. The reason why it is more than 90% sure, not 100%. Lele himself has no experience in this area, and can only give Su Ming feedback based on his physical condition, and he himself cannot be 100% sure. Of course, no matter how inexperienced or careless Lele is, the possibility of making a mistake is very low. Lele's pregnancy is definitely a great joy. The main reason why pandas are rare and difficult to reproduce in large numbers is that their reproductive ability is too poor. Female pandas only have one ovulation period a year, which lasts only 2 or 3 days, and the egg can only survive for more than 30 hours. In other words, only within these more than 30 hours can there be a possibility of pregnancy. Male pandas generally face an embarrassing problem: their ability to have sex is very poor. This has nothing to do with the panda's physical fitness and whether it is manly or not. It seems that God has destined that the males of the panda population are weak in this regard. Not only are they weak, but male pandas are not very interested in this kind of thing. They prefer to play. Maybe male pandas think that it is better to dig a hole and eat some bamboo than to have sex. Many seemingly powerful animals like pandas have this kind of unspeakable secret. For example, lions can only have sex for a few seconds each time. Su Ming has seen male lions in the zoo lying on female lions more than once, and they lose their armor as soon as they enter the port. Nowadays, pandas in major zoos are rarely pregnant. If it happens occasionally, it is basically artificial insemination. Natural pregnancy is very rare. In addition, panda babies are very fragile after birth and can easily die for various reasons. Panda mothers do not know how to take care of their children. The mortality rate of panda cubs exceeds 80%. Of course, Su Ming will not let this happen. If a panda baby is really born, he will definitely use his mental power to protect it throughout the process. There is one more thing Su Ming solemnly warned: It must be kept secret. Understood, Xiao Li and the veterinarian nodded vigorously. If the Hong Kong Ocean Park knew that Lele was pregnant now, there was no guarantee what the other party would think, so it was better to keep it secret. Su Ming asked the veterinarian, how long is the gestation period of a panda? Wild ones are about 4 to 6 months, and artificial ones are slightly shorter, about a month, the veterinarian said. Okay, I know. You should pay more attention during this period and come to the panda house regularly to check Lele's body, Su Ming said. I understand. Don't worry. From today on, I will definitely treat it as my girlfriend. No, treat it better than my girlfriend. The veterinarian pointed at Lele, who climbed back on the swing and was depressed. Su Ming asked a little worriedly, you don't seem to have a girlfriend. Veterinarian. I'm going back to negotiate with the Hong Kong Ocean Park first, and try to extend the loan period for another 4 months. Now it has been half a month, and counting on my fingers, it will take at least 4 months to renew the loan. After arranging the next tasks with the veterinarian and Xiao Li, Su Ming was ready to leave and go back to the office to negotiate with the people in the Hong Kong park. Just after taking a few steps, the male panda Yingying ran over from behind, hugged Su Ming's legs, and stopped him from leaving. What for? Su Ming was stunned. After communicating with Yingying with his mental power, Su Ming was speechless. After Lele became pregnant, she was lazy and unwilling to move. Her temper became very strange. She didn't play with Yingying anymore. Yingying was too bored staying in the panda house and asked Su Ming to play with her. Xiao Li would come in and play with the two pandas, but he was a human after all. After several mental communications, the two pandas thought that Su Ming was more like a kind of person. If they wanted to play, they would be happier with Su Ming. Su Ming laughed and was speechless. No wonder giant pandas have difficulty reproducing. It's not just a physiological problem. This panda couple doesn't look like they are going to be parents at all. When the wife got pregnant, the husband's first reaction was, I'm so bored without anyone to play with me, and over there, Lele seemed to be depressed because I can't play happily because I'm not feeling well, so heartless. But Su Ming didn't have time to stay in the panda house all day long. He wanted to refuse Yingying's unreasonable request, but this guy opened his two dark and watery eyes, stared at Su Ming eagerly, and made a strange sound, looking quite pitiful. Okay, stop acting cute and pitiful. I promise you. Su Ming bent down, held Yingying in his arms, and nodded to Xiao Li, I'll take it out to play for a few days, so it doesn't have to dig holes every day. Ah, Xiao Li was about to collapse. Why did the director think of one thing after another? What if Yingying got into trouble outside? Wouldn't he, the administrator, be in trouble? The veterinarian still looked calm and looked at Lele, who was sitting on the swing not far away in a daze, and said slowly, I think this is good. Let her be alone and quiet, which is good for the fetus. Super Zoo. Author, Yin Seg Nian Bai. Chapter 380. This little chubby Yingying is really heavy. Judging by the feel of her hand, she is estimated to have weighed over 100 pounds. That means Su Ming is much stronger now. In the past, he could not even carry this fat man. Moreover, this guy was not honest. He kept humping in Su Ming's arms, climbed up on Su Ming's arms with his two short legs, and tore Su Ming's hair into a mess with his two bare paws. Su Ming walked out of the panda house with Yingying in his arms, whistled, and was vandalizing public property not far away. The grazing Shivaosaurus trotted over with elegant horse steps. Seeing Yingying, Shivaolong's big eyes were full of curiosity, and he stretched out his big head to touch the furry ball. Yingying was also full of curiosity about this big guy. She stepped on Su Ming's arm, leaned forward half of her body, and rubbed the big head of Shivaosaurus with her thick bare paws. Su Ming was startled. Shivaolong was famous for its bad temper. No one except Su Ming dared to touch it, let alone touch its head. Except for Su Ming, anyone who touched it would be punished. Even Nangongyan is no exception. If you provoke it a little bit, it will spit out spit. This is a bad example of those stupid horses. Su Ming is holding Yingying in his arms now. If he sprays it out, won't he be in bad luck? Unexpectedly, Shivealong just snorted, seemed to be quite comfortable and shook his head, and took the initiative to lower his head to rub against Yingying. It seems that pandas are indeed very lethal, and even the weird-tempered Shiveosaurus can be cued. Turning on the horse, Su Ming let the panda Yingying sit in front. Su Ming held the reins with both arms, protecting Yingying in the middle like a big guardrail. With his legs slightly clamped, Shivealong took small steps and walked towards the office building in a familiar way. Going back, horseshoes made a soft ticking sound on the gravel path of the zoo. Not far away, a little girl saw this scene, pointed here and exclaimed in childish surprise, "Mom, look, the giant panda is riding a horse." Everywhere they passed, tourists almost thought they were dazzled. A horse, a person, and a panda were swaggering through the city. This was even more exaggerated than a circus performance. Many people even forgot to take out their mobile phones to take pictures and watched the scene with their mouths wide open. Yingying and Shivealong are both guys who like to have fun. As the saying goes, people go crazy and are watched by others. These two guys are extremely happy. Shivealong raised its head and chest, and took small steps as if it were performing a dressage. From time to time, it shook its long mane and floated in the wind, causing several ecstasy-like exclamations. Yingying looked quite calm, waving her little paws at the tourists around her like a leader inspecting her work. However, the two short legs that were leaning on the saddle and trying hard to stand up betrayed its inner excitement. "Comrades, give way, please give way, don't affect the normal order." Su Ming held up his work permit on horseback, shouting with smoke in his throat, and finally cut his way through the crowd. Office building less than a kilometer away from the panda house, there were constant tourists wanting to take photos. They stopped and walked, and it took almost 40 minutes to get there on horseback. When we arrived at the office building, we were followed by a large group of tourists, who seemed to be trying to surround the zoo's administration. Old Dong brought 4 security guards from the security department, and then managed to control the situation. "Ouch. Director, how did you get this guy out?" Old Dong's eyelids twitched when he saw Yingying. Who knew it was so lethal? Su Ming did not expect to attract so many people. When Yingying and Lele were at the Panda Pavilion, although they also attracted a lot of tourists, there was never such a huge crowd, and the enthusiasm of the tourists was also far worse. This gave Su Ming a wake-up call. Although pandas are a special case, it also proves that safari parks are more popular. Compared with animals that can only be viewed from a distance in cages, tourists prefer to get up close and personal with animals. In Su Ming's plan, the future development direction of the zoo included the establishment of a wild zoo, located in the back mountain. At present, the conditions are not very mature, and the only ones that are truly in a pure wild state are the dogs led by Grey Fang. They are not even considered to be immortal foxes. They spend most of their time engaged in feudal superstitious activities. These vixens seem to like the job of telling people's fortunes and praying for blessings, and they enjoy it every day. The snake park is also only semi-wild. If you have the opportunity, you can release more non-aggressive animals into the back mountains and build up a wildlife park bit by bit. However, the priority right now is not the safari park. After entering the office door, Su Ming put Yingying down in his arms and slapped him on the butt. "You can play by yourself, don't run around." Taking it out of the panda house was already a blessing. Su Ming, but he didn't dare to let it run around. It had to be under his sight, and he closed the door casually. The office is not big, and all the furnishings inside are extremely new to Yingying. She looked around curiously, and even took a few bites of the fake bamboo in the corner of the office. She found that the smell was not right, and twisted. "Climb onto the sofa on your butt." Su Ming ignored it, sat behind his desk and turned on the computer. Before receiving Xiao Li's call, Su Ming was processing the documents about the status of the 2 pandas sent by Xiangjiang Ocean Park, and he is continuing to do so now. First, I completed the document as quickly as possible and sent it to the email address of the contact person. Then I logged into QQ and contacted the panda person in charge of Ocean Park. Su Ming had previously thought that Xiangjiang only used communication software such as MSN. He did not expect that people also use QQ and WeChat. In recent years, the popularity of QQ and WeChat in Xiangjiang has become a general trend. The frequency of use of moments is even more than Facebook. It can be seen that the mainland's influence on Xiangjiang is growing, and it has unknowingly penetrated into every aspect of the lives of Xiangjiang people. Su Ming briefly chatted with the other party about the panda's life at the zoo recently, and was about to ask the other party whether the loan period of the panda could be extended for a few months. Unexpectedly, the other party actually offered to let the panda stay in Yangchuan Zoo for a while. It was not a business deal. Su Ming was stunned. What was going on? Su Sheng, it's like this. According to our survey statistics, after the 2 pandas went to Yangchuan Zoo, the number of page views of our ocean park was 0.42% higher than before, and the ticket revenue was also a small amount compared with the same period. Growth. So the board of directors decided to keep the pandas in the Yangchuan Zoo. Of course, they won't bother you for too long, half a year. Su Ming was even more puzzled. How could this happen? Could it be that he was wrong? The people of Xiangjiang and the people of the world actually hate pandas very much. Pandas are a hateful animals, so the pandas are gone. The popularity of Ocean Park has, on the contrary, there has been a slight improvement.